All right, here's the thing. I don't know if you're like me or not, but this is the only way I can survive in the morning. When I'm getting ready to go to work, if I don't have one of these, a note stuck to my keys, I will forget what I'm supposed to bring to work. I mean, that's just the way it is with me. I always make sure my keys are right by my phone. I put a note here. Remember to bring food. Remember to bring that book. I write those notes. It's the only way I survive because I can't remember things as well as I used to anymore. Anybody else like that? Well, it got me to thinking about a passage of scripture. And I know I've used this passage of scripture in a devotional before, but I want to pull out a different aspect of it and share one other verse later on. So this particular passage of scripture comes from Deuteronomy, and it's what has become known as the Shema. It is kind of the statement of faith for the Jewish people, especially during the time of Moses. And the Shema goes like this. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord alone. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. Keep these words that I am commanding you today in your heart. Recite them to your children. Talk about them when you are at home, when you are away, when you lie down, and when you rise up. Bind them as signs on your hand and fix them as emblems on your forehead and write them on doorposts of your house and on your gates. So this was, as I said, the Shema. This was the statement of faith. And when Jesus was asked what the most important commandment was, this is what Jesus said. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And then Jesus added one other thought, and this comes from Leviticus, and your neighbor as yourself. But those words of the Shema were supposed to be remembered. Now, it's one thing to remember things like this, to put them on a piece of paper and remember them that way. These things you are not just to remember just as a to-do list, but you are supposed to internalize these things. And so the idea was to take these things that God had taught, and in fact, Moses before this has just been reminding the people of how God had rescued them from Egypt, how God was moving them towards the promised land, how he had protected them from Pharaoh as they went through the Red Sea. Moses had reminded them of all that. And then he says that you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. So he needed them to remember it, but not just so that they remembered it as if it was something that they were supposed to bring to work, but to live it, to internalize it. And that's why I think it goes through this whole litany of how you are supposed to remember. Recite it to your children. Talk about it when they're coming home. Talk about it when you are away, when you lie down, when you rise up. But then he says this strange thing, bind them as fixtures on your hand and fix them as emblems on your forehead. You know what? That whole part is so important that it gets repeated again a couple chapters later. In Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 18, it says this, you shall put these words of mine in your heart and soul, and you will bind them as signs on your hands, and you will fix them as emblems on your forehead. Again, this idea of putting them on your hands, putting them on your forehead. And you know what? When we were in Jerusalem, we saw people actually doing this. They had little boxes with the Shema that they wore on their foreheads, and they wrapped these straps around their arms. They wore them right there on their arms. And the question becomes is why? Why would this be something you're supposed to do? Again, for the Jewish people today, some of them may take this literally, but it wasn't just so that you had these things on your body, like a wedding ring to remind you of your marriage. These were so that they became so ingrained in who you were that they were a part of you. To put them on your hands would be so that your actions, the things that you do with your hands, can be remembering that you are to love God with your hands, with the things you do. And to put them as fixtures on your forehead was to have them so ingrained in your mind that you are thinking about these things at all times. It wasn't just to remember, like putting a note on the mirror so you remember to set your clocks back a couple weeks ago, right? This is put them within your body, put them inside you in such a way that you don't just remember it, but you live it. It's become a part of what you do. It's a part of what you think. It's your whole being. So think about that. Do you have those things that you need to live out in such a way that it will reflect your love for God? Maybe there's some kind of note. Maybe there's some kind of fixture. Maybe there's something you can put on your body to remind you, or in your car to remind you, or on your desk at work to remind you, or in your backpack when you're going to school to remind you that you are not just supposed to remember this, but you are to live it in all that you do, in all that you think. Fix it on your hands and on your forehead and live it.